price that you're willing to pay. You cry in your tea, but you hurl in the sea when you see me go by. Why so sad? Remember we made an arrangement when you went away. Now you're making me mad. Remember, despite our estrangement, I'm your man. You'll be back, soon you'll see. You'll remember you belong to me. You'll be back, time will tell. You'll remember that I served you well. Oceans rise, empires fall. We have seen each other before. And when push comes to shove, I will send a fully armed battalion to remind you of my love. You say your love is draining and you can't go when I am gone. When all the trees you're my favorite subject, my sweet, submissive subject, my royal subject, forever and ever and ever and ever. You'll be back like before. I will fight the fight and win more for your love, for your praise, and I'll love you till my dying days. When you're gone, I'll go mad. So don't throw away this thing we had. 'Cause when push comes to shove, I will kill your friends and family to remind you of my love.
Thank you, Mr. Kriz. I don't often come out of retirement, but that was one of my favorite songs from the musical Hamilton. In the show, that was King George's breakup song with America. And it's not at all related to what I'm going to talk about. I just think it's a pretty cool song to sing, you know. Mr. Chris, thanks again for tickling the keys. That was great. Selena, thank you so much for those noteworthy quotes. Time, it's something that we have so much of, and yet so little. One summer day in 1986, I was riding my bike through the neighborhood, and I came upon a very tall kid, and his bike was turned upside down. He was tinkering with his wheel. "Hey," he says to me. I pull up and I say, "Hi. I have a flat. Do you have any tools or a tube?" It was very hot, and I'm pretty sure I was wearing a Star Wars tank and very short Larry Bird-style shorts with the stripe down the side with the hem that runs all the way around. No pockets. "No, I don't," I tell him. That's all right," he says. "What's your name?" he asks. "Rara," I tell him. That's my nickname. "My name is Marcus," he tells me. "How old are you?" I ask. 10, he says. "Oh, me too," I say. "My birthday's October 9th. When's yours?" "November 15th, he says. "I'm older than you," I say. "Yup," he answers. We stare at each other. "You're big." "Yup," he answers. We stare at each other once more. "Nice to meet you, Marcus," I say. "Nice to meet you too, Rara." I ride off. That fall, I arrive at Westside Middle School for the first day of 6th grade, and I recognize Marcus. "Hey, Marcus," I call out. "Rara," he recognizes me. We shake hands because we're too young and awkward to know anything about giving a dap. "How's the bike?" I ask. "I had to walk it home. I got a new tube, and it's in good condition now," he says. We had lunch together and picked up from where we left off that summer day. We became rather close, and by 8th grade, we were inseparable. He was my big little brother. My hometown, Waterbury, Connecticut, is very hilly. I lived on Plaza Avenue that existed between a woodsy area that would give you access to Elmwood Avenue and Lincoln Street in a matter of minutes. The woods were kind of like a portal to another universe, serving as a quicker step from point A to point B. These weren't lush green woodlands as you would find here in Simsbury. They were filled with jagged rocks, overgrown weeds, prickly bushes, and they were strewn with cigarette butts, beer cans, broken glass, and the occasional roach from a smoked joint. Marcus lived down on Lincoln. Without going all the way around the other end of the plaza in order to get to Lincoln, and vice versa, we would use the woods, sometimes passing neighbors making out, hobos collecting cans, and rebellious teenagers sneaking quick drags on cigarettes before going home after school. Marcus was not only tall, but he was big. As kids, everyone in the surrounding neighborhoods were into WWF wrestling. We'd find an abandoned queen-size mattress on the streets to use as wrestling rings. Each neighborhood had its champion. The world champion lived on Lincoln, the tag team champions lived on Elmwood, and I had a run as the intercontinental champion representing Plaza Avenue for a short while. Every weekend, we would have challenges, and they were always for the belt. Whoever the world champion was would host these events, and it would be on his street. We would all take on the personas of all the cool wrestlers. "I'm gonna be the Ultimate Warrior! I'm gonna be Hulk Hogan, dude! I'm gonna be the Macho Man Randy Savage, oh yeah!" Marcus was always stuck being Andre the Giant. "But I don't want to be Andre the Giant," he complained. But he was 6'8", he weighed about 250 pounds, he was also clumsy, and he didn't have control over his body. All of those traits were the epitome of Andre the Giant. Sadly, Just as Andre never wore the WWF Championship, we all ruled that Marcus was too big and it would be unfair to all of us, puny little skinny kids, if he were ever the champion. Clearly because he could have, and he should have wrecked us all. Though he did not like that ruling, he accepted it. Marcus, like Andre, was a gentle giant. We did so much together between middle school and high school. Some of it I'm not too proud of, but some of it was just too funny not to do. There was a time that we went roller skating at Roller Magic in Waterbury, and he was having a tough time with his coordination. As I said, he was very clumsy. He resorted to playing stand-up video games in the arcade area. As he was playing Asteroids, I decided that I would sneak attack him. This was a common thing among us. We always would end up sneak attacking each other somehow. So again, Marcus, he's 6'8", he's 250 pounds. I knew I had to get some momentum in order to knock him on his keister, so I grabbed hold of the adjacent Cupid machine, and I kind of whipped myself at him to try and clothesline him from behind. But the irresistible force went up against the immovable object. He didn't even budge. As I went flying backwards 3 or 4 feet, landing on the floor in front of a bunch of people that were laughing at me. They didn't even bother to help me up. They just stood above me laughing. Then Marcus comes over. And he holds out his big hand. And he helps me up. And we both went on to continue playing Asteroids together. Then there was another time that we found this rusting old bike on the side of the road. It still functioned, but we were certain that any pedaling would cause the rusting chain to crumble like saltine crackers. So we decided we would take this hunk of junk and leave it on some stranger's porch. We laughed the entire time as we dropped the bike off on the porch, and we rang the doorbell and we ran away. We thought we got far enough away when all of a sudden we saw the person who lived in the house on the bike riding toward us. The chain had held up, so we bolted off looking for the nearest wooded portal that would transport us back to our safe place. Fortunately for us, the bike would never have made it through the wooded abyss of rocks and pricker bushes. And then there was the time that we were at a festival in downtown Waterbury. It was called the Taste of Waterbury. There were several of the local restaurants. They set up food trucks, and they offered some of the marquee items that were on their menu. There was also vendors selling clothing, jewelry, and things like that. At the end of the block, there was a little green just across from the Waterbury Republican and American. If you're ever traveling through Waterbury on 84, and you see the big clock tower, that's the Republican and American. This green was also home to all of the porta potties for the guests that need to use the facilities. So we're chomping on some corn dogs as Marcus and I made our way toward the green, and we saw a guy walk into one of those porta potties, and we never exchanged words. We just looked at each other, and we knew we had to lock that guy inside the porta potty. So we approached the porta potty, and we found a stick that was big enough to go inside of the hole where you put the padlock, and we just stood close by watching to see what would happen. And before you know it, the porta potty starts shaking, and you hear this guy say, "Hey, let me out of here!" Mission accomplished. We start laughing and walking away. So then the next thing we hear is, "Hey!" We both turn around, and it's Waterbury's finest. The police officer is beckoning us to come back to him. So instantly, I had this overwhelming sense of guilt, and I started walking toward the cop, thinking that our days are numbered, and thinking that Marcus would be following at my side. I looked to my side, he was not there. He had ran off, and he left me in the lurch. I approached the cop, and he made me release the man. The man came out. He was clearly upset. Rightfully so, mind you. I shouldn't have locked him in there. The cop made me apologize to the guy. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lock you in the bathroom." And the guy was like, "All right." So the cop then looks at me sternly. He's like, "If I catch you down here again, you're going down into the slammer. Now get out of here." So I walk off. I feel a little bit ashamed, but I just couldn't stop laughing at the situation. That guy was like, "Hey, let me get out of here." Meanwhile, as I'm walking home, I see Marcus running down an alley on Willow Street, which was near what is now a 7-Eleven. It was a Church's Fried Chicken. And he clumsily climbs over this fence, and ironically, there's like police sirens in the distance. And they had nothing to do with the situation, but he was convinced they were after him. They're after me, Ron, they're after me! So he ran off. I caught up with him later. Fortunately, he got away from the law. So now in high school, we had a couple of classes together which were probably more fun than they should have been considering it was a school setting. We both had different foreign languages. Sophomore year, I was in Spanish 2, and he took French. I saw him walking down the hallway as I'm looking out the door, not paying attention maybe, and he had this stupid looking grin on his face. And I instantly knew that that meant something. He had a plan. I was horrible at Spanish. Señora Mazzetti, cuando estoy la bathroom para ahoramente? She just rolled her eyes at me and said, go. So I meet Marcus in the bathroom. What's up, I asked him, giving him dap. Now we knew what was up, all right? He explained his elaborate idea to me. Come into my French class and pretend we're in a fight. I'll start cussing you out and you just start punching me in my stomach and then run out, right? Again, we always plan these elaborate ambushes. So I'm not encouraging any of you on the hill to do this, okay? It's stupid. You're two public school idiots, okay? You guys are better than that. Okay, I say to him, I'll be there in 5 minutes. So I went back to my Spanish class, and I tell Miss Mazzetti, with the worst acting ever, I'm like, Dios mío! Forgot my, lapizamente in el baño, bathroom. So she goes, yeah, just go, right? So 2 doors down is the French classroom, and I burst into the door, and I look at him, I go, you! And then he looks at me and takes his French book. This was not rehearsed. He didn't let me know he was going to do this. Take his French book. Right? The crowd, the classroom just starts cracking up. The teacher's like, what's going on? Right? So I start chasing him around the classroom. The teacher's going crazy. But we didn't care. I just chased him around, and finally I caught him. And then I fake punched him in the stomach, and he goes down, and I'm pounding on his back. He falls to the floor. Proverbial pool of blood. And he found his revenge. He's like, I will get you for this! As he's laying painfully and pitilessly on the floor. I run out. Now again, I was about 120 pounds. Back then, he was about 250. But this was Marcus, alright? He was still, at that point, the gentle giant that would always let the underdog win. Sadly, we both lost that one in the end, and we were slapped with detention for a week. And what our high school would do, we lived about 45 minutes away from our school, and they would make us sit and look out the window at our bus driving off. And then they would say, okay, you're free to go. Right? And then there was no portals to get us from Kennedy High School to our neighborhoods without first walking about 30 minutes. A defining moment with Marcus occurred on one fateful winter morning. His entire family is tall, and he had twin sisters, Janice and Janine. So one day on the bus, he told me that he called his sister Janine Big Mix. Now, Big Mix was a breakfast cereal back when I was a kid, and the mascot for Big Mix was a cross between a horse, a moose, a chicken, and a pig. You can actually YouTube the old commercials to get a visual of what this thing looked like. So I start cracking up. We arrive at school, we go on with our day. At lunch, Marcus was already in line, so of course I cut the line so I could be with my best friend, because that's just what we did back then. And no one would say anything because he was big, they just accepted it. So for a short while, my brother was 2 years older than me. He went to Kennedy before he transferred to Wilby High School, which was the rival school across town. He was in line in front of us with our buddy Maurice, who was a neighborhood friend, and he was he's also two of my nephews' uncle. I greet Marcus. I say, "Hey, what's up, Big Mix?" Maurice and Joe overheard me say that, and everyone just started cracking up, and they spread the name Big Mix around the whole school. And he was furious. Marcus was so upset. "Stop calling me Big Mix, I'm not Big Mix." And that was his new name. His coach was calling it, "Big Mix, get down low! Get down in the paint, put your hands up!" So we get on a bus, and he's like, "This is Friday." He goes, "By Monday, watch, they're not gonna be calling me Big Mix anymore." So by the time we're 17, Marcus slimmed down a bit, he gained some muscle, he was recruited to play basketball at Virginia State. I remember the first Christmas break when we were freshmen. They were in a tournament, but he was allowed to come home for Christmas to be with his family. And the first thing he says to me is, "Hey, Rod, I gotta show you something." Takes off his shirt, shows me his ripped bicep, tattooed on his arm, "Big Mix." It was his doing, but it was my doing. So Mix, he stayed in the DC area after he graduated Virginia State. And my first professional acting job out of grad school took me to the Shakespeare Theater in DC. This was the summer that the Sniper was running around back in 2003. I spent so much time with him after rehearsals and while the show was running. I'll never forget his wedding. Again, this dude was clumsy, and he had lost a lot of his muscle and put on some weight after college. We all went to the tuxedo shop for his fitting. Not only did his tuxedo fit like spandex, this was a big dude. They gave him 2 left shoes. The clumsiest dude I knew had 2 left shoes. So he starts cussing the tailor out. Me and his groomsmen could do nothing but laugh at him. You know, eventually he came around to laughing about it because they got the situation fixed for him at no cost. So no matter how much time would go by, we would always just pick up from where we left off. His family grew, meaning him and his wife and his children, and once I was married, I had a family of my own. It became harder and harder for him to come up to Connecticut and for me to get down to DC. But we always had a plan of finding some way to get together. Time is short, and we both live very busy lives. One of his sisters was married a few years ago, so I was able to get down, and it was up here. I was able to get down to Waterbury for that, and that was only his second time meeting Kareem. Kareem was about maybe 3 then. We spoke of getting together soon after that, but the reality of making that happen, again, just becomes harder and harder as time goes on. I received a phone call from his sister 2 weeks after this school year started. She told me that he was in the hospital with a rare form of blood leukemia. His kidneys were failing, as was his liver, and he was in need of a liver transplant and a kidney transplant. I'm thinking, how can this be happening? We're only 40 years old. This is not supposed to be happening to someone who's 40. I get a phone call from his sister last week telling me that the doctors have done all they can do. No way, not the gentle giant, not the immovable object, not Big Mix. I get a phone call from his mother. I always called her Mommy too. She tells me he's in too much pain, that his body can't take anymore, that they're stopping leukemia meds, and they're going to remove his breathing tube. And I'm thinking, can we hit the reset button? It seems just like yesterday that we're both sharing stories of the first girl that we kissed. Last week, October 7th, Get a phone call from his sister. Ra, might I say to her, are you strong? Yes. Marcus is gone. And just like that, final chapter in the story of the tall boy I met with the busted tire has come to an end. I didn't see him while he was in the hospital. I don't know if I could have dealt with seeing the gentle giant hooked up to machines that way. My last encounter with him was a positive one. My last conversation with him was a good one. And that's how I want to remember Big Mix. I just turned 41 2 days ago. He would have turned 41 in November. At 10, could I have imagined that he'd be gone so young? At 17, when we were ready to take on college and the world, could I have imagined that in 24 short years he'd be gone? None of us know how much time we have on this earth. So cherish those that are close to you. All of the relationships that you're forging right now with your classmates, with your roommates, they're timeless and they're precious. You'll go your separate ways once life on the hill is done, but some of you are going to remain linked through your adult lives. Cherish that. I don't think there's anyone that I knew more or knew me more than Big Mix did. 30 years, it's a long time to know someone. Selfishly, that's just not enough time. But our relationship and our experiences together as friends, as brothers, they're timeless. He was the best big little brother I could ever have asked for. Thank you.